Sir Graham Watson, thank you for being here. You are in Romania for your...
Probably the 10th or 11th time. I'm here for the fourth time or the third time in the last 4 weeks. I was here to meet your sports minister. I was here with the European Economic and Social Committee, and I'm particularly pleased to be here with Călin Tăriceanu doing the conference this morning.
You've had a very interesting conference during this morning. You've discussed about the future of Europe. You've launched your book here in Romania. How do you find us?
Well, I was very surprised at the number of people who came today. It was a fantastic turnout. We had a very interesting discussion about the future of Europe with two of the people who have been representing you in the European Parliament, Norica Nicolai and Renata Weber, and with some of the candidates who may represent Romania in the future, people who have good experience, people like Ovidiu Silaghi, who was Minister of Commerce here in Romania, and others who I think could make a good contribution to the work of the European Parliament.
I know that you've said something interesting during the conference, that there are 3 big lies in general. I will focus on the third one. The third one says, I'm from Brussels and I'm here to help you. Why do you consider this is a lie?
Well, I think one of the problems is we've not really succeeded in creating a liberal Europe. The book that was launched, it was a Romanian translation of a book I wrote called Building a Liberal Europe, points out how the Europe of the European People's Party, which have been the major party at European level up to now, is not a Europe that's friendly to its citizens. It's not a Europe that shows the solidarity we need. It's not a Europe that brings everybody on board. The Europe I want to see, and the Europe that Călin Tăriceanu and his party are working for here in Romania, is a Europe where countries show solidarity to each other and where people show solidarity to each other. I am ashamed at the way Romanians have been treated in my country, the United Kingdom, since the Brexit vote. I am sorry that we've not seen more solidarity from Germany, for example, which has benefited a lot from the euro and the single market, towards countries that need more help. We've got to build a Europe where everybody feels they have a stake.
Is it really possible, a Europe like this?
I believe it is, but I think we're in the difficult stage of moving from a Europe of nation states to a Europe of peoples. And what we've seen in recent years is the nation states pulling back. We've seen a new nationalism. We see it sadly in Italy with Mr. Salvini, we see it in Hungary with Mr. Orban, in Poland with the government there. That's not the way forward. We are all one European people and we have to work together.
We are discussing a lot here in Romania about the double standard that is applicable at the European level. What's the cure for this double standard?
I think the cure is that we need a Europe that is more open. Transparency in government decisions is so important. People must understand how the European Union takes its decisions and is the thinking behind those decisions. Up until now, we've had national governments claiming the credit for everything that Europe does well and then blaming Brussels for everything Europe does badly.
We've received a lot of criticism from the European level in Romania. How do you see these analyses from recent periods?
I do think it is important that we are honest with each other. That if people feel that Romania is a country that is corrupt, that they say so, and that they produce evidence to back it up. But let's be honest, there is corruption in many countries in the European Union, and some of those who are throwing dirt at Romania come from countries which are not so good themselves. So why don't we set up a European anti-corruption agency? Why don't we even have a European FBI to fight against corruption and mafia-like activity? It works very well in the United States of America, and we need it in Europe.
Maybe we don't want one?
Well, of course, it's true that some national governments, some interests resist this. One of the things I did as a member of the European Parliament was to put forward a proposal for a European arrest warrant. What that meant is that if you committed a serious crime, but you escaped to another country, the police in that country had to work with the police from your own country to arrest you and send you back for trial. We need more of that kind of cooperation across borders in Europe.
Do you think it's possible in the next mandate of the Parliament to see some movements, really movements from the roots?
I think it's important to understand that the last 5 years, or even perhaps longer than that, the last 8 or 9 years, have been spent trying to recover from the damage of the financial crisis of 2008-2009. We've been trying to consolidate our banking systems, we've been trying to get our economies moving again, and perhaps we have not spent enough time looking at the Europe of the citizens and the needs of our people.
You've said that at the European level the steps should have been made long before. Do you consider that it's too late now?
I think history might tell us that we did not move quickly enough in the building of the European Union. But when you are a convoy of ships, you can only move at the speed of the slowest ship. And inevitably, that slows us down. We have to remember that it took 170 years to build the United States of America. In Europe, we've been going at it for less than 70 years. But we cannot afford to move too slowly.
Discussing about shifts came into my mind the situation of ALDE Europe. What do you consider will happen next?
I think we're going to see a very different European Parliament. I regret to say that there are likely to be very many more right-wing extremists in Parliament and very many more populists, and that the traditional political families, the Christian Democrats, the Socialists and the Liberals, will be smaller in numbers. That will make governing Europe more difficult. What is important is that we have a strong centre force.
Like En Marche?
Like En Marche, if Mr. Macron's En Marche from France wants to join the Liberal family, then we should welcome them in. But we should not allow them to take it over. We should not allow them to come in and say, well, we are now in charge, we are running everything. You know, when you are 28 countries in one union, you have to work on the basis of democracy, and you vote to decide who leads you.
I will ask you directly, do you consider that Guy Verhofstadt is doing some wrong steps now?
I think Guy Verhofstadt has done what he could as leader of the Liberal group. He succeeded me when I stepped down in 2009. He has been in the job for 10 years. He's probably about to move on and to give way to somebody else. But I think it's important that Guy understands that you need to bring people with you. And I'm told that he announced last week that the ALDE group would dissolve. I'm not aware that he consulted with any of the members of the group before he made that announcement.
Does it matter?
Yes, I think it does matter, because I think leaders have to respect democracy, and they should not do things unless they know they have the support of the people they represent.
Is it Brexit going to happen?
That's a very interesting question, and you know, making predictions in politics is always dangerous. But it has been my view now for some months, and is increasingly my view, that Brexit will not happen, because I think the very, very small majority which existed in favour of Brexit at the time of the referendum 3 years ago no longer exists. The majority of British people have seen what Brexit means in terms of loss of jobs, loss of investment, loss of influence in the world, and they're beginning to think maybe it would be better to stay with our continental friends.
What do you think will happen in 2 days, on 23rd, when the elections are happening in the United Kingdom?
Well, I hope that a lot of people will go and vote, not only in the United Kingdom, but across the European Union, over the period from Thursday to Sunday, when the different countries vote.
We are voting on Sunday.
I believe that in the United Kingdom, the anti-Europeans will do quite well. They will probably be the largest single party, but I think they will do less well than they did in 2014. I think the high point of the tide of English nationalism has passed, and Mr. Farage and his party, while they're still strong, are on their way down. What we are beginning to see in the opinion polls is that those who are clearly in favour of the UK staying in the European Union are going up and up. And I'm pleased to say that among those parties is the party I represent, the Liberal Democrats.
Is it Brexit actually the earthquake for the European Union as it was to?
Maybe Brexit is a kind of wake-up call. You know, immediately after Brexit, support for the European Union in other member countries went up, because people begin to recognize that what we've created is still a rather fragile Europe. You know, we may lose countries like the United Kingdom. We might see countries like Hungary or Italy or Poland move away from democracy. If we are to safeguard European values and to build on the shared democracy that we have, then we all have to work to keep everybody on board. I think we've probably escaped the worst. I think Brexit will not happen, and I hope the United Kingdom will recognize that it must contribute positively but not arrogantly to the future of Europe.
The future of Europe comes with a lot of questions, of course. Is it going to be a Europe with different speeds? Is it going to be a Europe of equality for all the citizens? What do you think will actually happen, seeing the movements right now?
I'm still worried about some of the challenges that we face, but by and large, I'm optimistic that we have kept the show on the road in this sense. Europe can only work if it has a competitive economy, if it is producing wealth so that its people can enjoy the fruits of that wealth. We have managed to consolidate and even to start growing Europe's economy again after a number of very difficult years. We now have to go on to build on that to make sure we have a strong society, make sure that we're having the social solidarity that we need, and that we are building on the tradition of citizens' rights, which has been so important in Europe. It's not just human rights in the broader sense. It's rights of people to live together, to work where they choose, to cross frontiers without any hindrance, and so on. That's what we have to work on.
When you said cross frontiers, I was thinking about Schengen. There are two countries in the European Union that are not part of the Schengen, even though they fulfilled all the technical criteria. Those are Romania and Bulgaria. I know that you know very well the situation. What's your analysis on this issue?
I think you should not conflate Schengen and the European Union entirely. Remember that the United Kingdom is not part of Schengen, and it never has been. Some countries prefer to keep controls of passports at their borders. But I do believe that Romania and Bulgaria, which have made many steps forward towards meeting the criteria for joining the Schengen area, should have that progress recognized. You cannot decide that you are somehow going to punish two member states by keeping them out of the Schengen arrangements. What is most important to a country is the direction in which it's moving and whether it has the European spirit. I believe that Romania does have the European spirit. I believe Romania's people recognize the importance of building the European Union, and I hope that this will be better recognized in other national capitals than it has been.
Is Romania moving in the right direction, in your opinion?
I think the progress has slowed down. I think one can look a little bit further in the past and see greater progress being made in Romania. But I think progress is still there, and I hope that people will not move too fast to slap judgments on Romania, but they will try to understand a little more the difficulties that the country is having to face.
When I was thinking about the new architecture of the European Union, I was watching all the movements in the recent periods and all the things that were put on the table, all the things that were said in the last period, and I was asking myself, are we going to see a better Europe? Are we going to see better politicians that have understood that the citizens did not feel the exactly measures that were taken in their interest?
Well, are we going to see a better Europe? You know, I have two children. I have a daughter of 27 years old and a son of 23 years old. And I ask myself the question, are they going to be able to enjoy a better standard of living and greater opportunities in life than I have been able to enjoy? I hope so. But it's no longer as obvious as it was in the past. And I think many people ask that question. What is the future for their children? What kind of Europe are we leaving to them? We've got to make sure that it's a Europe that gives them maximum freedom. Will our politicians be any better? I would remind people of what the Greek philosophers used to say, that, you know, people who are too intelligent to go into politics pay the price of being governed by people who are more stupid. In other words, our politicians are only as good as our society. And if people feel that the politicians are not good enough, then they have a duty to run for office themselves and to make things better.
Who will win the elections? The European elections?
Well, I think
the actual winner.
I think no party will have an overall majority in the European Parliament. No party will have more than 50% of the seats. My guess is that the European People's Party will probably still be the largest of the mainstream parties. And there is a bit of a fight for second place between the Liberals and the Socialists. But what I think is important is to know whether the mainstream democratic parties can work together to create a majority in the European Parliament that is needed to stop the right-wing extremists from reversing the advance of democracy and civil rights on our continent.
Let's fill in the blanks. The future of liberalism depends on?
Future of liberalism depends on the voters. When I say I expect the European People's Party to be the largest, that's based on what has happened up to now. But we live in a democracy. We can choose. If everybody goes out and votes Liberal, we will have a liberal Europe, and I hope they will. What does the future of liberalism depend on? It depends on people like me. It depends on people like Călin Tăriceanu and ALDE Romania on getting the message out to people. But we have had from ALDE Romania two representatives, Norica Nicolai and Renata Weber, who've worked very hard in the European Parliament. If we could have another 2 or 4 or 6 or 8 of them from Romania, I think we'd have a much better Parliament.
How do you see the relationship between ALDE Romania and ALDE Europe in the near future?
I hope that the good cooperation will continue. I see no reason why it should not continue. I hope that liberals across Europe will recognize that ALDE Romania represents the real liberals in this country. There are others who claim to be liberal, but I have worked over many, many years with Călin and with others, and I have no doubt that they represent the forces of liberalism here.
How do you see the Romanian political scene?
I think Romania has just presided over a reasonably successful 6 months at the head of the European Union. I think the Romanian presidency has helped Europe to focus on what it wants for the future. The declaration from the summit in Sibiu was an important one, and I hope that the future for Romania is continued progress within Europe. You know, Romania is not a small country, either geographically or in terms of population. You have over 20 million people.
Yeah, seventh as power in the European
Seventh power in the European Union. And Romanians should never feel that they are in some way second-class citizens simply because they have joined more recently than others. There can be no second-class citizens in the European Union. We all have equal rights, and we all have an equal opportunity to shape the European Union as we want it.
Where do you see Romania in, I don't know, 5 years from now?
Well, I hope that Romania will continue to prosper. I'm very pleased to see that many of your industries are doing very well. You have quite a high rate of economic growth. I hope this is feeding through into people's wage packets. I hope they are feeling better off as time goes on, being able to take more holidays abroad, being able to afford more things for their children than has been the case in the past. I'm optimistic for the future of Romania.
Are you also optimistic for the future of United Kingdom?
The United Kingdom is in a very difficult situation because about 30% of our people feel that the European Union is not democratic in nature. They feel that it's something alien to them and they want to leave. That has been the case for many years, but they now feel it more strongly. So I'm optimistic only if the other 70% say, no, we have to stay in Europe and we have to make it work the way we want it. We need more engagement from people. We need people to take more responsibility for what we are doing together at European level.
Some quick questions. Being European, a good European for you means?
Being a good European for me means recognizing that whatever language you speak, whichever God you worship, whichever passport you hold, we are all human beings. We all have the same needs. We all have the same hopes and desires. And we need to work together in a world which is increasingly difficult and in some respects more dangerous. We have a president in the United States of America who is not following the normal rules on trade between countries. We have a president in Moscow who is trying to undermine democracy in countries like the Ukraine and Moldova. We have a president in Beijing who is working by different rules, not respecting democracy and freedom for their people. If we put all the Europeans together, we are only 500 million people. We'd better stick together in this world.
Being a good politician is?
Being a good politician is listening to people. It is not necessarily doing what they say, but looking at what the situation is and applying intelligence to the decisions you make. And if people say, look, capitalism has become too raw, large companies are abusing our rights, then we should be moving to control those companies at European level. I give you an example. Margrethe Vestager is the Commissioner for Competition at European level. She has managed to bring countries like Microsoft and Google, companies like Microsoft and Google and Amazon under control because she has the power of a market of 500 million consumers behind her. That's the kind of thing we can do if we work together at European level. We cannot do it if we are single nation states.
She's competing now for the presidency of the European Commission, representing ALDE party from Europe. Who do you think will be the next president of the European Commission?
Well, I think Margrethe Vestager would be a very good president. We've never had a president from Denmark, and perhaps more importantly, we've never yet had a woman as president of the European Union. But I'm sure there are other candidates too, and what I think is important is that the heads of state and government come up with the right nominee, and that nominee, the person they nominate, gets the support of the European Parliament. If the European Parliament says no, then they have to go back and come up with another name.
3 minuses and 3 pluses of Romania right now.
Oh, I think plus in May at this time of year is your wonderful weather and your wonderful natural environment. But I can think of many other pluses for Romania, most of all your European spirit. Are there minuses? Yes, of course. There are minuses in every country.
Treatable?
Treatable, without doubt. I don't want to see a country where when people go to hospital they feel that they have to pay a bribe or a tip to the nurse or the doctor to get better treatment. I don't want to see a country where children don't always have equal rights in schools. You know, these are part of a country's development, and I have no doubt that life will continue to get better for people in Romania, providing you have the right government committed to building the European Union.
What's the final message for Romanians?
I think my final message for Romanians at an important time in Europe's development is keep faith. Recognize that not everything works as it should work at European level, but we can only make it better if we are determined to do so and to work together. So my message to Romanians is look at the opportunities that we have if we work together for building a liberal Europe.
Sir, it was a pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.